All right, here we go. Week 3, college football. Week 2 was awesome, ton of upsets. But here we're coming into week 3. I'm going to give you my top 10 games of week 3. There are so many good ones. This, of all the weeks that I've drawn up so far, with maybe the exception of week 1, but I don't even think that. Of all the weeks I've drawn up so far, week 3 was the hardest to select. There was a lot of teams left out of the top 10 this week that deserved to be in the top 10 on any other week, but just the bracket of games this week, it kept them on the others column for games you should definitely watch, but that aren't going to be in my top 10 predictions section for this video. It's a huge weekend for the Mountain West and the American Athletic Conference. Both conferences play 6 Power 5 matchups, and several of those matchups made it into the top 10. So there's a little bit of sneak peek. Keep an eye out for your American Athletic Conference or Mountain West team in this preview. It's going to be exciting. I'm going to just briefly review last week. If you want to get a full review of the week 2 action, check out my week 2 review video. I'll put a link in the description. I just go through the whole week, just talk about really, I say whatever comes to my head, but I do have a structure that I go through and I hit each week. But I just talk about all, the big storylines, upsets, week top 25 preview, who should have been in, who should maybe have risen more than they did, that kind of thing, hot takes, around the world, around the globe, kind of quick shots, and it's an exciting video. So make sure you go watch that, but let's just do a quick pre-review of week 2. So in my week 2 action, I was 6 out of 10. So week 1, I was 7 out of 10 predicting wins, losses, but week 2, I was 6 out of 10. I should have written wins, losses versus me there, but oh well. 6 out of 10. ESPN also 6 out of 10. So we tied in our week 2 previews. I did pretty well against over/under. Last week I was 8 out of 10, and again this week 8 out of 10. So not quite where I want to be in the wins-loss category, but I'm doing pretty well in the over/under compared to what I predicted myself being going forward into the season. Overall, 13 and 20 win-losses, 16 out of 20 over/under. ESPN 12 out of 20 so far. So I have a slight lead on ESPN going into this week. This week, one of us is going to pull away because I am picking against ESPN on a lot of these matchups. I am predicting a ton of upsets, and part of the reason I'm doing that is because I'm mad at myself. You remember from my week 1 video that I predicted in my preseason preview that Virginia Tech would beat North Carolina. And then on my week 1 top 10 games, I chickened out and said North Carolina. And if I just stuck with what I said at the beginning of the season, I would have been right. This week, same thing. In my preseason preview, I even talked about it in my week 2 video. In my preseason preview of the Big Ten and the Pac-12, I said that Oregon was going to beat Ohio State. And again, based on my performance against Fresno State, I just said, it's off. Ohio State for the win, and Oregon won. So whatever crystals I was looking through, I'm just kidding. Whatever crystal ball I was looking through at the beginning of the season, it serves me well, and I'm going to stay with a lot of those picks. And I'm looking at some big upsets this week. I'm excited to see what can happen. So let's get right into it. I'm not going to spend too much time. It's already late for me here, and I want to make sure we get this video out here so you guys can enjoy it prior to the week 3 matchup. So as always, we're going to go the least to the best. We're going to talk about the others just on the outside and then go 10 to 1. So others, and there, like I said, so many big matchups. First off, this one, a lot of you are going to be surprised didn't make it into the top 10. Alabama versus Florida. It's not that I don't think that these teams are good teams. It's just that Alabama is just on such another level right now that I don't think Florida is going to come anywhere close to challenging them. So while this might be a good game, and it's definitely a good matchup for the SEC, I just don't think it's going to be all that fun to watch, because while Florida might hang around for a couple of quarters, Bama's going to end up winning this one big. So that one's just on the outside looking in. Mississippi State versus number 24 Miami, another good one. Utah State versus Air Force, and San Jose State versus Hawaii. Not necessarily national games, but it's the first Mountain West games. So the Mountain West kicks off their conference schedule, first Mountain West versus Mountain West opponents. So a lot of us here, Boise State and otherwise, might be interested in that one. Liberty versus Old Dominion. You're going to see a Heisman contender in Malik Willis, who was kind of playing with getting used to the offensive tempo last week. After the first week that Liberty played, they really didn't release him or let him play all out because it was against the FCS opponent. They wanted to keep some things on the shelves. I think he started to get some things underneath him, and you're going to see a huge offensive explosion for Liberty versus Old Dominion this week. So it might not necessarily be that fun a game to watch as far as the matchups go, but Malik Willis is a player that you want to watch, so at least make sure you find the highlights of that game if you're not a Liberty fan. Mississippi State versus Memphis. That is a game that could probably have made the top 10 if not for a couple of other big ones. Sorry, Memphis fans here. That is a big one, a big chance for Memphis to make a statement. Left out of the Big 12 expansion, one of those top teams in the AAC that was left on the outside. They want to prove that they deserve to be in future expansion consideration. Going to go out and try to get a big win here for this program against Mississippi State. All right, that's the others on the outside. All of those games, high caliber games, with the exception of one or two there, but all of them good games that you should definitely go out and watch. Let's get into number 10 right now. Okay, so as always, and I will hit it all. Sometimes I forget and have to go back and catch it, but I do catch myself. I'm going to give you the game. I'm going to let you know where you can watch it, what time you can watch it. All times will be Eastern time zone. I'm going to give you ESPN's, the Vegas odds, plus ESPN's percentage prediction, what ESPN is favoring, and then I'll give you who I think is going to win and my over-under. So first one here, number 10 overall, 2-1 Fresno State coming up against 2-0 UCLA at number 13, 10:45 p.m. Eastern time on the Pac-12 network. This is so much bigger a game than anyone else is thinking. It's on the radar. This should be on the national radar, but it's getting underrated. And this is so much bigger game than anyone else is giving credit for. Fresno State almost took down Oregon, and that team went out and beat Ohio State. And this is a great Fresno State team, a really good Fresno State team that looks very dangerous in the Mountain West. I think they should be ranked in the top 25 right now. I mean, you can fail upwards, and Fresno State losing to an Oregon team the way that they did should almost have counted as a win, especially, my battery's dying, especially after Oregon went out and beat Ohio State. So I'm saying that Fresno State should have been ranked here. UCLA, in my preseason previews, I said that Fresno State was going to beat UCLA. I said they'd lose to Oregon, but I said they would beat UCLA. Now, UCLA, they're better. They're moving in the right direction, and they beat LSU. But I think that they are... I don't think that they're as good as their ranking shows, even though I do think that this is a better UCLA team under Chip Kelly moving in the right direction. And I'm going to say for this one, Vegas has UCLA at 11.5 odds and a 71.5% favorite according to ESPN. On this one, I'm calling an upset. So UCLA, no one else is doing this. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one, but UCLA, I'm putting you on upset alert, bam, 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 upset alert, because Fresno State is a very good football team, much better than most people are expecting, and they're determined, they're hungry, they're coming in with a lot of energy, momentum after two big bookend wins to the loss to Oregon, with a big win against Connecticut and a big win against the FCS program they played last week. Jake Haener is my player of the game for this matchup. I also give a player of the game for each matchup. My player of the game for this matchup, the quarterback for Fresno State, over 1,000 yards passing and 8 touchdowns so far. And against Oregon, he was 30 of 43 for 298 yards and a touchdown. Really kind of heated up as the game went on there. So Fresno State, a team that is underrated, that is top 25 worthy, that's going to give UCLA a run for their money, and a team that I think UCLA might be overlooking just a little bit, even though Fresno State played Oregon close there. So this is one of my top games of the week. It's just compared to the rest of the schedule, I'm putting it here at number 10. But I'm going to call Fresno State and under on the Vegas odds. Okay, number 9, number 2-0 so coming to this game, Virginia versus 1-1, 21th ranked overall North Carolina, 7:30 p.m. network, 7:30 p.m. on the ACC network. This is a big game as far as the ACC goes. Virginia trying to pull off what their brothers in Virginia Tech were able to do. It's Virginia, they're siblings because they're in the same state, but it's not a friendly sibling rivalry. Sibling rivalry for sure there. Anyhow, back to the same, what I was trying to say here. Anyhow, Virginia coming in against Virginia Tech. Bronco Mendenhall has his team in the right direction. They're trying to prove that they're not the team that played last year and had a disappointing performance. They're trying to prove they're that 9-3 program that played a cup in 2019. I think you're going to see a return to form here, but Sam Howell awesome quarterback who's trying to get on his feet and moving in the right direction. Still a top quarterback ACC. I think they prove a little too strong here. Vegas odds have North Carolina +9 and a 71.2% chance. I think that's good. I think that North Carolina is going to win this football game. Close for the first 3 quarters, but I think that Sam Howell has this team moving in the right direction and ends up winning better than the Vegas odds. I'm calling over on this matchup. Number 8, 2-0 Oklahoma State coming in and playing at Boise State. This is a huge matchup. I'm not going to go too in-depth in it because I already did a video talking about 3 reasons for Boise State and 3 reasons for Oklahoma State why either team could win. And I'm going to do a 3 keys to the game video later on. So I'm actually not going to give you my prediction on this one. I'm going to save that for 3 keys to the game video. If you're interested, make sure you watch that video. But this is going to be at 9 p.m. Eastern time on FS1. I wish it was on a bigger network. It really deserves to be. It's one of the top games of the week. Boise State is actually favored somehow. Oklahoma State struggled against Tulsa, which explains that, I think. But Spencer Sanders looks like a quarterback who can definitely get it done against Boise State if he can take a little bit of a step forward. Boise State defense has struggled in the past. So he had 62 yards rushing. He actually leads the team in rushing for Oklahoma State right now, and 173 yards passing in his first matchup after being on the COVID protocols for week 1. So coming in a little rusty against Tulsa, but still playing well enough to win. The big player, though, in this one is George Holani, a player who didn't play against UCF and a player who was limited last week in the win, but who is 100%. Boise State is 14-16 when Holani is on the field. Hear me out again on that. 14 out of 16 when Holani's on the field. And Holani is actually undefeated, or Boise State's undefeated with Holani when Boise State is playing with the same quarterback they had from the previous matchup. The 2 games that Boise State has lost in that 16 the 16 games that Holani has been active, Boise State was actually playing with a injured quarterback or had gone with a different choice at quarterback than the game previously. All right, so like I said, Boise State favored in that one, 66.4% chance, but I'm not going to give a prediction in this one. You'll have to watch my three keys to the game video, and when I make that video, I'll put it in the description. Probably coming out Wednesday. All right, 7th here is 2-0 so far. Number 15, Virginia Tech, of course, the other team from Virginia that has that win over North Carolina, going up against 1-1 West Virginia. And you know what I've done? I've gone and forgotten to write down the time and the what channel this one is on, and that is on me. I apologize for that. I'll put it in the description. West Virginia favored in this one by 3 points, but ESPN's done this a lot so far for the games this week. They're actually picking against Vegas. So West Virginia favored by 3, but Virginia Tech actually favored by ESPN with a 57.5% chance of winning. The Virginia Tech quarterback's the one to talk about in this matchup. Braxton Brewmeister, 311 yards passing, 3 touchdowns and an interception, and he leads the team in rushing and passing, the 94 yards rushing and a touchdown. Leads the team in both categories. I'm going with ESPN on this one. I think that Virginia Tech does get the win over West Virginia, and I do think it's going to be over that Vegas odds there. All right, so 6th overall. All right, AAC, here you go. First AAC team in the top 10. We're coming to the top 6 here. 2-0 so far. UCF, the team that has a win over Boise State at 1-1 Louisville. 7:30 p.m. Friday, not Saturday. Make sure you get that. This is Friday. Big game to watch the day before the kickoffs for most of these games, but that's going to be Friday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. UCF favored by 7 and 60.5% overall by ESPN, and rightfully so. This game isn't necessarily in here because it's a great matchup, but it's in here because what this means for these programs. Cincinnati has a big game here, and if Boise State can find a way to win against Oklahoma State, it's going to make the Boise State win already looks good for UCF. But if Boise State finds a way to win against Oklahoma State, that win's going to look even better. And if they can go out and beat Louisville and beat them big, it's going to be huge for UCF, potentially moving forward in the season to challenge not only for New Year's Six, but maybe even something beyond, especially if they can get some wins against some of these top AAC teams and against a team like Cincinnati, especially if they could beat them in the regular season and in the conference championship game. That would be the ideal situation here for UCF. So UCF, this is going to be a team that you're going to be seeing make some big moves at the end of the season, competing for some big things. You want to watch this game. Player of the game, easy 1. Dylan Gabriel's 630 yards passing, 6 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, both against Boise State, and 107 yards rushing and a touchdown. He also I'm going to give 2 players of the game for this one just because you can't ignore this guy. Bowser, I mean, he bashes through like he's trying to knock through the walls of the castle. He has 231 yards rushing and 5 touchdowns, 5 yards per carry. Boise State could do nothing against him. This is an outstanding UCF team. I'm excited to see what they can do this year. The better they do, the better Boise State looks. So I'm rooting them on all the way. All right, 5th, we're into the top 5 here. 2-0, number 23 overall BYU at 2-0, number 19 Arizona State University. Arizona State favored this one 3.5 by Vegas, but sorry, I forgot to last one. I told you I'd do that. UCF, I'm giving them the win and over on the Vegas odds. So Arizona State favored by Vegas. ESPN favoring BYU 53.3%. Arizona State 3.5 Vegas odds. 10:15 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN. The player of this game, Jalen Hall, 149 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, and 92 yards on the ground against Utah. This is a great quarterback. Really is. He was really stepped into the role. He didn't look great early on in that game. And he didn't necessarily look great in the Arizona game, but the full playbook was open after potentially a partially closed playbook against Arizona, trying to keep some cards on the table. Jalen Hall looks really good, a very suitable replacement for Zach Wilson, and has BYU headed for some big things. If they can keep winning, they have some other top 25 matchups besides this ASU game potentially down the road, and a big game against Boise State. I am picking BYU in this one. I think they continue their trend. They continue to surprise people and get those upsets. I called BYU beating ASU in my preseason preview, so I'm sticking with that because I've been right on those preseason previews there. And I do think it's going to be over the Vegas odds. Excited to see what BYU can do this one and make a big jump in the rankings after knocking off ASU, potentially getting into the top 17, especially with how fluid the AP poll rankings have been. If they can get a big ranking, they might be able to jump in the top 15 and start being contenders, or at least in the contention for something very big down the road. All right, number 4, 2-0 Nevada at 2-0 Kansas State. Both these teams very under the radar, but undefeated so far. 2:05 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN Plus. So they're so under the radar, they're not even on the real network. They're on ESPN Plus. But this is a Nevada team that is very good. Nevada team that deserves to be ranked. One of the best Nevada teams I've seen since Colin Kaepernick played at Nevada. Their offense is explosive. Carson Strong for Nevada is a draft prospect. He's one of the top draft prospects in the country, according to CBS Sports. He has thrown for over 693 yard pass, 693 yards, 6 touchdowns, and an interception. Nevada is favored by 2 in this one, and ESPN, however, is picking the opposite side. They're favoring Kansas State 67.3% in this one. I am picking Nevada to win this game, make a big statement for the Mountain West with a win over a Big 12 team, potentially put themselves into contention for consideration in conference expansion if it continues down the road, and to potentially jump into the top 25. So I'm picking Nevada in this one, and I'm going over on the under-over. 2-1 Nebraska versus, at 2-0 number 3 Oklahoma, noon on Fox. Nebraska is not having a great year after losing to Illinois to start the season, and normally I wouldn't rank this game as high, but it is a historic rivalry, 84th meeting between these two schools. Oklahoma owns the rivalry so far, 45-38. But it is a historic rivalry, and you have to respect the rivalries. I have huge respect for rivalries. They factor big into my rankings of top 10 games. So this is definitely a game that's in the top 5 for me. I'm writing here at number 3. Oklahoma favored by 22 by Vegas, no surprise, and given a 91.6% chance of winning overall by ESPN. However, Oklahoma has not looked good to start this year, and they really struggled in their Week 1 matchup against Tulane, who is typically a bottom-tier team in the American Athletic Conference. So, I'm not calling a win by Oklahoma, but they need to win. I am calling a win by Oklahoma. I'm not calling a win by Nebraska. I'm not calling an upset by Nebraska. I'm not putting Oklahoma on upset alert. I do think Oklahoma will win this game, but I do think it's going to be under the Vegas odds on this one. For a little bit, another disappointing start. Oklahoma is not playing like a playoff team right now, and if they really want to get into playoff contention so the committee doesn't start kind of raising their eyes at some of these early games for Oklahoma, they need to not just win, they need to crush Nebraska, and I'm not sure that's going to happen. in a rivalry setting, anything can go wrong. We saw that last week with Texas losing to Arkansas. I'm not predicting that kind of upset this week, but that Texas should not have lost this game. But, things happen. It's a rivalry game. Teams have certain games circled. Certain teams come in more motivated. There's a lot of factors that go into it. And Nebraska's definitely going to be motivated to come in and win this game. Oklahoma only has a one-game winning streak in this. They won the last time they played in 2010. But Nebraska's been able to win this game in the past, even against better Oklahoma teams, and they're going to be motivated to. So I think it will be under on the 22. I think that it will be a closer game than a lot of people are predicting, at least for the first 3 quarters or so. But Oklahoma pulling away for a win, but not a big win like they need. Player of the game, easy one. This one, Spencer Rattler, Heisman contender. 542 yards passing, 6 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions so far. All right, top 2, here we go. And AAC fans, you're going to be happy about this one. Cincinnati, 2-0, number 8 Cincinnati, going up against 1-1 Indiana, noon ESPN. Now, I said you'd be happy about where they're placed, but you're not going to be happy about what I say next. Cincinnati is favored by 3.5 by Vegas and has a 55% chance of winning according to ESPN. But I think that Indiana pulls off the upset in this one. I'm putting you on upset alert, Cincinnati. I predicted it in my preseason previews. I don't think that Cincinnati has looked as looked deserving of a top 10 ranking. I think they're overranked from last year, where they played due to COVID. I think they got ranked higher than they would otherwise, with just taking advantage of a couple of situations there. I think that they're overranked. I think they're a top 20 team, but I don't think they're a top 10 team. I think that they go in here overlooking Indiana with a matchup against Notre Dame down the road. I think overlooking Indiana a little bit and get upset big in a game. This is not a bad Indiana program. They were top 25 before the season, lost huge to Iowa, who is a playoff contender for sure, a very, very good team in Iowa. So don't be underlooking Indiana. I think that Cincinnati might be doing that a little bit here. So I am calling Indiana for the win, over on the over-under. The quarterback of the game here, D. Ritter for Cincinnati. He's definitely the player of the game here. Definitely one of the top athletes in this matchup. But I think that Indiana comes in excited for this one. Has this probably circled as one of their biggest home games of the season, especially non-conference wise, and ends up getting the upset against Cincinnati in this one, which is good and bad news for the American Athletic Conference. It's bad news. It's pretty much bad news overall because it knocks off a potential playoff contender in Cincinnati. But I think it's good news for UCF because the attention will shift to now. The best news for UCF is for them to knock off Cincinnati. Yes, I acknowledge that. But the attention is going to shift to UCF, especially if they can win big against Louisville. If they can win big against Louisville, the attention is going to shift to UCF. The media is always looking for that American Athletic Conference team, or that little underdog team in their eyes, that is going to be able to go in and compete for that New Year's Six. And the American Athletic Conference has been the media darling for a long time now, especially over the Mountain West. And I think that if Cincinnati loses here, they're going to look for their next, their next knight in shining armor knight in rusty armor that they can bring up to shining armor, and that knight is going to be the UCF Knights. So while this is not good news for the conference overall, and really not necessarily good news for UCF, who would like to go out and beat Cincinnati on their own and take that spot by themselves, I do think that it's going to shift a lot of early attention to UCF, and really the more attention on this program, the better. So it's not, I misspoke earlier, it's not good news for UCF, but it's tempered news. It's not as bad news for UCF as it is for the rest of the conference, if Cincinnati ends up getting upset like I'm predicting. All right, number 1 overall, the best matchup of the season. Not necessarily the most stakes, not necessarily the highest ranked teams, but my best matchup of the week, one I'm most excited for, and I think you should be. I think it's going to be one of the most competitive and exciting games to watch here, is number 22, 2-0 Auburn at 2-0, number 10 Penn State, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time on ABC. Penn State favored in this one I wrote over it. I wrote over it in my section. Penn State favored in this one by 6 and given a 62% chance of winning by ESPN. But Bo Nix is a quarterback who's finally performing at the level of play that he is capable of with the coach he needs to get him to that level. Brian Harsin is an excellent coach of quarterbacks, an excellent developer of players, of course, Boise State's former coach. And I predicted at the beginning of the season that Auburn would have a chance to come in here and I predicted they'd beat Penn State, and I'm not switching on that. Like I said, I'm sticking with that crystal ball I had at the beginning of the preseason because it has served me well, and I wish I'd paid more attention to it. I think Auburn goes into Penn State and gets a big upset win, and it inspires a lot of faith in this Auburn program. Brian Harsin is a playmaker as head coach. He is a guy who is able to draw up incredible schemes, especially when nobody believes in him, and do great things. And I think that he's going to prove to Auburn faithful why he was hired against a lot of protest, really. He wasn't the number one choice by a lot of Auburn fans and a lot of Auburn boosters, but I think he's going to prove why he was hired. I think he's going to do good things with this program that has a lot of talent on their roster that just needed to be managed properly. And Gus Malzahn, while a great coach, this wasn't the right fit for him at Auburn. He's doing better things at UCF, but it just wasn't the right fit for Auburn. I think Brian Harsin is the guy to get Auburn back to where they need to be. So I'm going to, just for Brian Harsin's sakes, I'm going to say a little bit of a go War Eagle for him. I'm not an Auburn fan. My uncle did go to Auburn, but I'm not an Auburn fan necessarily, but I'm a Brian Harsin fan. I wish him all the luck in his matchup. So that's my top 10 preview. I don't want to talk too long because my phone's going to die here at any second. But that's my top 10. Went through it as fast as I could and hit all the big ones. And like I said, that Boise State one's the only one I didn't predict. Watch my 3 keys to the game video if you want to see what I'm going to think about Boise State, win or lose in that matchup against Oklahoma State. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure you stick around for not stick around, but make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss any other great college football content. And like I said, I'll link description for that Week 2 review. And make sure you watch my Week 3 review on Sunday or Monday when I put it out. All right, thank you for watching this video. And as always, go Big Blue.